Today I'm going to be watching a video looking at the experience of a British person who's just recently moved to Australia, I believe. And this is 10 reasons to move to Australia. I've watched a lot of videos about people who have moved to Australia. Always enjoy them, seeing the people's different perspectives, especially people coming from the UK, where obviously I'm from the UK, so the comparison is much more relatable to me than maybe people from other countries. So can see the difference, can see the things that are better in Australia compared to Britain, which is a lot, of course. But you can tell me what you think about this. Let's check it out and yeah, watch.
I've been living in Australia since last August. My wife's Aussie, my in-laws are Aussie, and my dog's Aussie. I'm joking. I don't have a dog. But I guess you could say I really like Australia, and I think you probably would too. And by the way, this isn't going to be one of those generic move to Australia videos where they're like, oh, there's a beach. Oh, the pastries are nice. Oh, it's always sunny. I'm going to let you in on some really cool things that Australia has to offer that you won't have heard before. So if you're looking for a change of scene, then these are my top 10 reasons why you should move to Australia. Let's get into it. Now, first of all, I think we need to be outside because while I've worked very hard on my YouTube studio here in our Aussie apartment, it's not as vibey as the outdoors. So let's go. Bloody love it out here. Just before we start, I know that it's not feasible for everyone to just up and move to a whole different country. You might have responsibilities to your family, to your job, to, you know, older parents. Like, I totally get that. And also, it can be expensive to move at first. My wife and I have the luxury of having not really any responsibilities other than, you know, spending time with our loved ones, which we can do if we catch a flight every now and then. It's definitely cheaper to live here in Brisbane than a lot of the UK. I say a lot because obviously there are parts of the UK that are probably cheaper to live than Brisbane City, Australia. We lived in London in a tiny one-bed flat, like really small, black mold, everything was breaking in it, and we were paying more than we are paying for this lovely spacious two-bed apartment with this gorgeous view with like palm trees all around. And it actually got to the point when we were in London where we were miserable. We had seasonal affective disorder. We were just working all the time to make ends meet. And we were just so unhappy. We didn't have a proper quality of life. Okay, so the first thing is that...
Yeah, just with regards to that, obviously that's one thing that is attractive to me about Australia is the cost of living. I feel like it will vary within Australia from what I've learned. Obviously places like Sydney and Melbourne, I would guess, are going to be a bit more expensive for cost of living compared to maybe somewhere like Brisbane. Is that fair to say? But I think for the quality of life you get for what you pay for in Australia is 100 times higher than what you actually get for the quality of life in the UK. And that's everything just from the day-to-day, like the weather, but also things like education, healthcare, things like that. I think from what I've learned, it might be different in your opinion being Australian. It seems like everything is better in that respect in Australia. We've actually been looking at visas for Australia recently. One of my wife's friends from Malaysia just moved there. She got some sort of visa which meant she had to go to a certain place or a certain region. I think she moved to Adelaide. Her visa only allows her to work there for a certain amount of time, then she can move. Like, what do you think about that? Is it worth moving to a smaller place first, like Adelaide or maybe Brisbane? I know Brisbane's not so small, but do you think you get more bang for your buck in a place like Brisbane compared to Melbourne or Sydney? What do you think?
The weather is pretty excellent here in Queensland all year round, apart from if you're in some parts like Melbourne, where it's more like London and more temperamental. But if you're in the state of Queensland, it is hot, it is warm, it is good. It can be a downside, it can be too hot, but you know, as long as you've got aircon or a fan, you're doing all right. Obviously there's more to life than the weather, but the weather is just virtually every day it's sunny, which as a British person I'm just not used to because it really is quite grey and rainy in the UK. And because the weather's so good, it feels like you're on a holiday all the time, which I think makes you more productive. I think it improves work. I think it improves hanging out with family and friends. The second thing...
Yeah, that one for me is important because obviously looking at our next move, living in Malaysia where the weather's 32 degrees and it's sunny every day, I love that being British. I've lived here for so long, but I never take it for granted. I always appreciate it. It makes me very happy. It's like one of the most important things. Do you think Brisbane's the best place for weather in Australia? Again, that's very subjective. I guess people got their own opinions, what they prefer. Maybe it's somewhere like Melbourne where it's a bit more varied. But what do you think about that? Where's the best place for weather? Maybe where do you think is the most similar to Southeast Asia? I guess they're probably the northern regions of Australia.
Is that, I can't remember who said it, someone on TikTok said this, but Australians have huge coffee privilege. Coffee here is so exceptionally good that once you've tried a cup of coffee here, nowhere will be as good. And I've had coffee in France, I've had coffee in Italy, in Japan, some of the parts of the world where the coffee is meant to be the best, but Australia makes the absolute best coffee. I don't know what it is. It's probably because their brunch culture is amazing here, and it'll make you never want to go to Costa ever again. Oh my word. The third thing is that the people here are generally really friendly. People in the UK are really friendly as well, but probably less likely to stop and have a chat with you. But people here, they really do fit the stereotype of being friendly, chilled, laid back. And a lot of people, when you're at a restaurant or a shopping centre, will want to have a little bit of a chat to you. And especially if you've got an accent, they'll want to find out more about you. The fourth thing is...
Yeah, that one's important for me as well. Being Scottish, like when I go back to Scotland, people are more open and friendly. I think probably quite similar to Australians in that way. And I do kind of miss that living in Asia. People are not really as open, like on a day-to-day. You don't just walk by someone and say like, hello, how are you, or anything like that. Or you go to a shop. People are friendly and people are nice, but you don't get into that conversation generally. But Australia is like, everybody that goes there, that seems to be the thing that they commonly say, that people are just like happy, friendly. Again, even in the UK, compare it to the UK directly, I feel like recently over the last couple of years it's been getting less like that, because life's just been getting on top of British people with their like, if it's struggling to get by, cost of living, all that sort of thing as well. So it's cool to know that in Australia still people can be like that, actually.
Is that generally the pay is better here. If you do a quick Google search on this, you'll find this out for yourself. Now, this doesn't really apply to me because I make my money through acting and freelance video editing, so the pay here doesn't really affect me. It's kind of the same wherever I go. But
see, like that, being an actor or video editor, like how would someone like that get a job? Like if you move to Australia, is it possible to get like a visa where you can just like do things like that, which are more like freelance jobs? Is there like a freelance visa, I guess I'm trying to say, something like that? Or is it always a requirement to get a job first before moving? Tell me if you know anything about that.
If you do work a 9-to-5 job, generally the pay...
Or if you know of any good jobs that would be suitable for someone like me. I mean, I would probably need to go more into my work experience for that. But tell me, yeah, like where's good places to look for jobs if you know of any for foreigners or people outside of the country?
It's a lot better, and Aussies have a lot more disposable income, which is nice. Okay, I am getting a bit too hot now, so let's go inside. Oh. Okay, we're back indoors now, away from the dangerously high UV. Fifth thing, brunch culture. Do I need to say anything else? Brunch is such a big part of the culture here, where when you catch up with friends or family, or when you want something to do, the first thing you think about is brunch, and you go out and you go get brunch. And the brunch here is amazing. There's so many like copycat Aussie cafes and brunch spots in the UK now, because people are starting to let on that it's actually an amazing thing. And you'll go get an incredible coffee, you'll go eat some incredible avocado on toast, or a poke bowl, or an acai bowl, things that I hadn't even heard about before, and then I tried them, and then it's amazing. And they just take brunch really seriously here. They make sure that the coffee and the food is just super high quality. Also, the brunch is really cheap here.
Really? That's one thing I found that maybe wasn't the case. I was in Melbourne and I found it like relatively expensive. I mean, coming from Malaysia, it's obviously going to be expensive, but I thought even for what it was, maybe it was just the places I was going was a bit more like on the fancy side or whatever. But when I was in Melbourne, it was like, I thought it was quite expensive for brunch, but I mean the quality was insane. The quality was super good. There were really nice places and things like that. I guess you can get cheap if you want, but that's one thing. Yeah, if you're from Australia, if you ever want somewhere that has like a similar like concept or coffee places and things, in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur there's a lot, because a lot of Malaysians go to Australia to study, and so many of them come back here and actually open up coffee shops, and they're like similar, the food serving, the things they serve. the style of the cafes and stuff. There's a lot of really nice cafes here, so if you ever want a holiday, it's a good place to come. That is cheaper as well, cheaper option, but might have some similarities in a way. It's not going to be the authentic thing, but close, I think.
You can get a coffee for like £2 and you can get like a really big plate of food for like £7. So it's just so good. Number 7.
Yeah, I guess it's, again, that one when you compare it to the UK, I'm comparing it to Malaysia there, but if you compare it to the UK, that's definitely a lot cheaper. Yeah, the costs have been like spiraling out of control in the UK, man. When I go back, it makes me quite sad actually. There's just not as many good things about the UK as there used to be, I think.
Is shopping centres. They have this brand called Westfield, which you probably know if you live in the UK, because the UK has a few Westfields, big shopping centres. Well, they're Australian. If you thought the one in Shepherd's Bush was big in London, then wait until you get to Australia. The Westfield shopping centres and other brands of shopping centres they're just insane. They are ginormous. They go on for miles and miles, it feels like, with tons of shops and restaurants. They're just so fun. And I think one of the main reasons why this is the case is because a lot of Australia is very hot, so you couldn't just build a big shopping village outdoors. No one would want to go to them. When the weather's really hot here in Queensland, people either go out to places with air conditioning or stay indoors in their own air conditioning. So they've got these big air conditioned shopping centres that are just crazy malls. And they've got everything you could ever want inside them. They're amazing. Number 8 is it's generally a very safe place to live. Obviously there's bad people and criminals wherever you go in the world, but I've seen a lot less crime and dangerous situations living in Brisbane than I have living in London or even living in the Cotswolds, which you would think is a pretty safe area of the UK. And my wife feels much safer as a woman walking on her own through the streets here than she did in London. Number 9 is the wildlife is crazy. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about cliche things, but I'm not talking about kangaroos and koalas right now. I'm talking about things like galahs, cockatoos, rainbow parakeets. I know I'm just listing off birds right now, but just to name a few, the wildlife here is like being in a tropical daydream, a tropical movie. It's incredible and it's exciting. And in the UK, we've got some amazing wildlife, but in Australia, it feels so exotic, and I'm still impressed. Like, I haven't just been living here since August, I've also spent time here on and off for the last few years because my wife's Aussie, so we're visiting here to see family. It's just brilliant here. When you see a bird that is complete rainbow colours fly past your face, and that's just normal. Like, it's just so cool. It's just such a cool place to live. And number 10 is, I know I was saying it's pretty hot here, but there's a climate preference for everyone. If you like snowy mountains, Australia has that. If you want hot, sunny beaches.
Yeah, that one I learned in one video that Australia has more snowy mountains, you can say Alps, than Switzerland. That one kind of blew my mind. I wonder if Australians even know that as well, man.
Sunny beaches, Australia has that. If you want jungle river cruises, Australia has that. If you want cooler areas, Australia has that. Australia, if you look at it on a map of the world, you'll see how huge it is. So it's not just the generic, what we see in the films, where it's like hot and dusty and kangaroos bouncing around. If I wanted to go into the outback right now, I would be driving for hours and hours and hours. It would take me ages. So when we fly from the UK to Brisbane, we'll usually fly to Singapore and then Singapore to Brisbane. So we've got a layover. That flight, Singapore to Brisbane, the majority of it is flying over Australia, and it's usually like a 6 or 7 hour flight. So the majority of those 6 hours is just flying over Australia alone to get to the other side of the country. If you're like, yeah, I would love to experience Aussie culture, get the coffee, see a koala, but I don't want to live in the brutal heat, then there's, you know, a change of scene for you. Also, no one is perfect, no country's perfect. I have a list of negatives as well, so if you want me to make a video on that, comment below. Also, I have a weekly newsletter where I help you, you know, grow and...
Okay, that's cool, man. Yeah, interesting video. Cool to see another perspective. I mean, just general happiness as well. Like, every single person is just so happy to be in Australia. Be interesting to see the negative video, see what you can come up with. I mean, maybe Australians can tell me the negatives as well, what you think. But yeah, tell me what you think about this video. Thanks.